Well, hello. Welcome to another Career Revolution series episode. My name's Licia Dewing and I'm a career strategist. And I get to zoom in and out from this little studio to interview interesting, amazing, and extraordinary people who've done the unconventional to revolutionize their career. And our guest today calls himself a rock and roadie turned entrepreneur. Rich Mullholland, who's the founder of The Missing Link, a company that helps people make presentations that don't suck so much. He's also the author of 3 books and has a very interesting concept that he's going to share with us today about hobbynomics. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring Rich into the studio.
Hey, here I am in the studio. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. We're not going to start talking about why on your education part of your LinkedIn profile you say scrape through by the skin of my teeth. But if you actually give a crap, I probably wouldn't want to talk to you. So we won't start the conversation
Okay,
there.
but we can get there. We'll pin it.
We'll pin it. Rich, hobbynomics and this, I mean, you've got an incredible amount of thought leadership, and I'd love to say another pin. Let's keep having you back so we can keep talking about all of it. But right here, right now, I want to unpack this concept about hobbyism. And should we have jobs that we love? And then should our hobbies become our jobs? Shouldn't they? I mean, tell us about hobbynomics and what have you got to say?
So hobbynomics for me is a very, very simple concept. And it's the concept, and so we're going to wrap back from there. Hobbynomics for me is the concept I started realizing years ago that people will spend disproportionately. There is a different economy for what people will spend on their hobbies. So, and when you look at if somebody's a cyclist and you see how much they spend on bikes, you'd be like, that's crazy. Why would you spend that? It's just a bicycle. But to them, it's not. Well, as soon as you have something as a hobby, what I refer to as a recreational obsession, and I'd like to go into that, all of a sudden, it takes up a disproportionate amount of space in your world, and it has its own economic cycle. And I realized that if I could figure out a way to build a business around somebody's hobby, it's fantastic, because even in a downturn, even when, things are through 2020, our business went to revenue zero. And I was still buying board games at 1,000 Rand a pop because I have 1,000 board games. That's my hobby. That's what I want to spend time on. And so, we realize that there are different things there. But more interestingly for me at the beginning is how, for a lot of us, when we start out, our career becomes our hobby. And I think there's a problem with that. And so that's something I'd like to maybe explore with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into that, because I mean, look, the Career Revolution episode and the work that I do, it's about helping people find work that sucks less. To use your analogy of presentations that suck less, it's like you're spending so much time doing this. Let's try and figure out what you really enjoy doing and kind of do the work that's really going to light you up and make you excited, because then you're going to do it better and you're going to be better at doing it. And then you're going to earn more and you're going to have more options that find you as a result of that. But if you're kind of plodding away in something just because, it's eventually that friction's going to just come out and bite you. It does. We can't hide from it. So I think gone are the days of the type of work where you could just pitch up, do it, and then leave. I mean, obviously various levels and trajectory within people's careers, but now it's about, and as a result of the pandemic, it's about, we've got to bring our whole selves. We've got to do something that's going to really fire us up and ignite us. So this concept about spending more time on hobbies, it's kind of like the classical person who might be in a sucky job, but really lives for their hobbies, or lives for the weekend, or lives for the time outside of it. So perhaps it's a way of being able to balance where they don't find their joy within the joy of the hobby. I mean, what do you think about that? What do you?
Well, so I see it more as a tightrope than a seesaw. Okay, so I don't think that I do understand it as conventional wisdom. The conventional thinking is, well, a lot of people, because let's go back to purpose work here. For we talk about purpose all the time, and Simon Sinek, you got to start with why, and what's your why, and that's wonderful. But why is a privilege, right? Why is a privilege? If you're saying that, a lot of people, the people who work in a call center, that's probably not their why, right? The bottom line is, if you're driving a forklift, it's probably not your why. And we can say to everybody, I'm not driving a forklift, I'm building a cathedral. And we can sell that story to them. But the bottom line is that they are driving a forklift. And so often what they do is they live for 5 o'clock, and 5 o'clock comes and we do something amazing. And then, of course, you get other people that are doing a job that they have a burning fire for. They love it. And for them, they put their heart and soul and everything into that job. And when they get home, they're exhausted. They get home, first of all, late. They have a quick dinner, and then they check their emails afterwards. And then they go to bed and they've got no other life. Now, I think these are two extremes. I believe that there's no good reason why we shouldn't have both. Why can we not? We really, really, really have a burning fire for what we do during the day, and then leave that. And I think the biggest mistake we have is that we leave work and, I just want to switch off. Why? Why do you want to switch off? When I leave work, I just switch over. I switch over from being a person who solves a meaningful problem that I'm obsessed with solving to becoming a person who wants to go and play a board game or go to jiu-jitsu. The passions that I have, these recreational obsessions that excite me. So I don't think there should be a trade-off. And I think we're better human beings when there isn't.
I love that. I love that. It's like a switch over rather than a switch off. And it's not an on-off. It's not a, singular thing. As you say, it's a completely switch over. So where in your career, let's talk about your kind of career trajectory that's been hugely entrepreneurially powered. I mean, you've gone into some phenomenal things that I've seen from following you for a number of years. So many interesting things. And of course, then the pandemic. I mean, pre-pandemic, you were speaking in 26 countries in 1 year alone. And then that really sort of changed. So I know that the pandemic brought that pause and opportunity of revolution for us all, whether we were in the work that we enjoyed or not. There was that. But talk us about sort of around that and where this idea of this sort of switching over and playing with the two variants of this tightrope happened.
So you just disappeared for about 10, 15 seconds there. The screen went black. Sorry, so I missed that question.
So the question I was asking is like your career trajectory and how you got into this type of thinking from a guy that helps people do less presentations that don't suck. You're kind of sort of dabbling in some really big philosophical concepts about work-life balance and being good humans. So I'm just really interested to know, where did that part of Rich start to develop?
So let's start with the core philosophy for me. And this is fundamental for me, at least from a career point of view. You talk about, and I love what you said. Now I'm going to keep coming back to it. You talk about having a burning inside you, a burning fire. And I do, but the burning fire I have in the afternoon, in the evening, is for something that I love. The burning fire I have during the day is for something I hate. And I think that's a critical thing. See, I think human beings, we have space for both. We want to do great, amazing things, which are actually lower stress, and we want to solve meaningful problems that we care about. I didn't start a presentation company because I love them. I started a presentation company because I hate them. I believe that entrepreneurs, we solve one of two problems. We either fix a problem or we fill a gap. That's entrepreneurship. So we either see a gap in the market, we say, why is that gap there? And we fill it. Or we see something that's broken, like presentations, a waste of human attention, and we fix it. So I don't like the idea of doing what you love, personally. I like the idea of loving what you do. I love the problem I solve. And now I do, as a professional speaker, I highlight what fills my tank is getting on the stage and speaking to people. But the day-to-day problem that we're trying to solve as a business is because when we started, I was just so frustrated by it. And you can be very, very excited by what you're frustrated about. My problem is, let's say I did what I loved. If I took board games and I turned board games into my business, would I still want to sit there at night and get excited about 10 different games coming from different companies? Would it still excite me the same way? I'm sure there's maybe some ways I could do it. But when you turn your recreational obsession into your vocation, it becomes problematic. There is a trade-off. So I would rather do what I love at night and solve what I hate during the day. And I can be equally burning and fueled by both.
Okay, that is fantastic. I came across a quote, Dr. Caroline Leaf, and I saved it, and I want to put this to you. She says, "Purpose is not the thing you do; it's the thing that happens in others when you do what you do." Purpose is not the thing you do; it's the thing that happens in others when you do what you do. What you do is help others make presentations that are less sucky, and that might not be your purpose. You're doing something that you love, but it's what's happening in others at the time that you do that. So you're loving what you do. Sorry, you're not doing something that you love. What you love is playing board games. Do you want to make that your 9 to 5 problem?
Because that's selfish. It's in service of me.
Yes. So by loving what you do, the purpose is what you ignite in others. So when people come up to your presentation, when you're training, your stuff, you're radically cool, call it a bit of punk rock, this is how you're going to make a presentation less sucky, they then get ignited by that. Whether it's because it's the presentation or because it's you're loving what you do. So there's like that, it's like an inversion of it.
So let's go through both. I've got a purpose statement for our business, Missing Link, and a purpose statement for ourselves. Our purpose statement for Missing Link is to help ordinary people deliver extraordinary presentations because it'll change their life, right? So, all right, because imagine I asked my staff to get fueled by my passion. That's another human. But it's very, very easy to get my group of people fueled by the idea of the impact we can make in other people's lives. Because everybody's one presentation away from being Simon Sinek or Brené Brown. So why don't we make that happen for them? Okay. And then if you go to my personal purpose statement, it says to live a fun life while empowering and provoking people to make their mark in the world. So even my own purpose statement is in service of other people as well. And so that for me speaks exactly to that lady's quote. And I've never thought about it that way before. And you took me by surprise when you said it. My knee-jerk reaction, because I want to be contrarian, was like, she's overthinking it. But then I think about it and I think it's genius. It's so good. Like I need you to send it to me again, because I want to ponder it in my morning reflections tomorrow and really, really kind of dig into it. It is one that needs a little bit of wrestling with.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it was a screensaver completely. It was like, this is something I'm holding on to for sure. So your books that you wrote, was it you wrote the book to help people understand more about something? What was the push there? What was the revolution there?
Well, there's a bit of ego at first, right? Like, I reckon that I think everyone has, if you look at the world, you have an ego spike in your 30s. I'm convinced of it. In the 30s, you think like, hey, look at me. My shit don't stink. So in my 30s, I wanted to write a book. Like I thought like, hey, smart people write books. Let's do it. And I started writing my first book, Legicide. It was actually published the day before my 40th birthday, just on principle. I said I'd do it by my 40th. So the first copy was given away the day before my 40th birthday. Or the first, I think a client luckily bought like 1,000 of them, which was nice. Cool. But there was more to it than that. So there was one of my personal values is ruthless curiosity. And it's really, really probably my biggest thing. And I had there was a thing that I was obsessed with, this idea of legacy thinking and holding on to things that made us successful in the past that actually hold us back from the future. And the more I thought about it and the more we worked in that space, the more I realized it was a problem. And at that time, I was flying every week from Joburg and Cape Town twice a week. So once a week up, once a week back. And so I decided that the airplane was boring and I didn't like that. And I hate boring space. So to make it meaningful, I said, well, every time I fly, I'll write a little chapter of this book. So the book is actually written. I refuse to write anywhere other than Kalula.com, MN464, seat 1 Charlie. And I wrote the whole book in that thing. So it was one part time, one part a little bit of ego, and another part the idea that it's really, really great getting the thoughts outside your head, no matter what you're doing. And as a professional speaker, which is part of my business, I use that as stage marketing. As a professional speaker, I wanted to have a tool that was a business card for the talks, and the talk is, of course, a business card for the business.
Okay, interesting. And you mentioned about your morning reflections. So, what are some of the things that you do that help you with the work that you do? Because you courageously put yourself out there, you create an incredible amount of thought leadership and content, and it's ongoing. I mean, the system of writing, the discipline of writing on that plane, when perhaps many of us might have thought, "Oh, yay, day is done. I'll have a glass of something," as we touched down in Johannesburg sky. I commend that and I applaud that. So, can you share some of that? What is it? Morning reflections and
Yeah, I can take you through some of how I live my life. So first of all, I don't give myself the options for those things. Let's start with the morning, and then we'll maybe chat a bit about my calendar and how I'm completely not utterly controlled by it, and it's the most empowering thing in the world. So morning reflections, every morning I have certain things that I want to go through. I like to start my day learning, and I don't think social media is necessarily learning. I do get there eventually. I go to the toilet like everybody else and doom scroll. I think only when you scroll up does it. Never mind. But so the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I open an app called Readwise. It's my favorite app. I absolutely love it. And Readwise takes the highlights. So when I read a book, whether I listen on Audible, whether I read it normally, or whether I'm doing it on my Kindle, I send my highlights, any highlights I have, to Readwise. And every day, Readwise selects 5 random highlights from a book that I've read and serves them back to me. So I can re-look at those highlights of books again and think, oh, that's amazing. The next thing I do is I use a service called Refind. I open Refind after that, and I go through, it's got a bunch of curated articles, and I pick one article to read every morning that's relative to something I'm passionate about. And then the third thing I do is I'm always reading some sort of philosophy book, something in that space, personal development book, and I read, 5 minutes from one of those books. And so I do that, and then I open up my daily reflections. I've got them all set up, and I answer certain questions. So the first thing I have to do is to set a new day's resolution. So I've got a whole scoring system for my week, month, and day, week, month, and year. And it all basically starts with what I score in my new day resolution. So every day I start a new day resolution. Today's one was pretty terrible. My assistant has been asking me to get my invoices done for the tax year, and I keep on moving it a day. It's kind of an end thing. And so I made it my obsession to do it today, and I've done it. But I'll have whatever. I'm sorry. I died. I'm sad. So then after I do that, I answer some questions. So the first question I ask is, what is one thing I could have done better? So my to-do better list. So I reflect on the day that I had before, and I say, what is one thing I wish I did better? So if I snapped at the kids, or, I had a meaningless argument with somebody, or did something, or reacted badly on social media, I reflect, what do I wish I did better yesterday? And I do that. So a to-do better list rather than a to-do list. Then I do a to-do more list. I reflect back and think, on the flip side, what did I do that I was particularly proud of? And then I write that. Then the next thing says, happiness is : And I just think, and I try to go through my day and think, when was my peak happiness yesterday? What did I do? And what starts happening is you start realizing it's the same pattern. I cannot tell you how many times my peak happiness was dinner with Jazz and the kids. Like, it's just like fills me up so much. And meetings with my own personal team, my staff, like they're so amazing, and I love it. So then what I do is I go through, I look at today's most valuable interaction. So I go into my calendar and I say, what is the most important interaction? And 100% this interview today was my most valuable interaction for today. So that's what I put up there, is where I've got to show up my best. And then I'm trying to think of the next one. Oh, the next one is an affirmation. So I have a personal goal, and I have to get all cheesy and write, I will do this. And I write that every single day. And that's pretty much it. Then I have reflections, and reflections are just write down a stream of consciousness of what you've been thinking about, putting that out, or what you read, and just capture 2 or 3 ideas. So that's my morning routine that I do. I then exercise and stuff. And then from 9 to 10 every day is craft hour. That is only doing work that is only reading and learning relative to my field. So I read my competitors' books, which is great because they don't read mine.
That's incredible. That's absolutely amazing. And I'm so glad that we went into that segue. I really put to you, Rich, that that's going to be the next thing. The next big thing is like taking people through that, because you're not doing, it's something that you've created on the side to support the other thing that you're doing in your life that you do really successfully on. And what people crave is, I've learned and understand, when you have friction within your life, whether it's in your career, whether it's in relationships or whatever, when you have friction, you want to be able to have a system, to be able to just take you through that friction. And when you're at your lowest, the friction can overwhelm you. And a simple process of being intentional or whatever, and sometimes these concepts are too big, meditating or sitting quietly, whatever, it's too hard. Sometimes we really just need a list of things that we need to do and questions that we need to go through to be able to bring ourselves back up. The Atomic Habits guy said, your best intentions will fall on your worst systems. Your
totally.
biggest,
100%. It's a great line.
Yeah. So here you've got incredible systems that you've set up. Can I ask you how far into your career you started that? Was the 40-year-old who wanted to get the book out traveling backwards and forwards from Joburg to Cape Town? Did he develop that, or was it something that came further down the line when, family, when we become a parent, a partner, there are many other demands. When we're just single doing the work, we can be selfish.
So that particular system, and there's lots of systems, that particular system, I would say, I know, for example, the New Day Resolution one, which I run every single day and I've scored myself. I started that in 2017. I've never missed a day. Some of the other ones, they probably come, and I really do think, so I'm trying to think about these eras. In your 20s, you're bulletproof, right? And that's why I really, really worry about mentors talking about work-life balance to 20-year-olds. When 20-year-olds talk about work-life balance, I want to just sit there and say, hey, guys, there's time for that. This is not it. This is the time to work until your eyes bleed. This is where you get a head start. In your 30s, I think we're quite controlled by ego. I think we're the best looking we've ever been and we look great. And then in our 40s is the first time we start becoming quite, for me at least, and I don't know if this is general, but it seems to be, and maybe it's just the people I hang with, reflective. So we start realizing, hey, I want to stop living in service of myself, and it's where the change goes, and I want to start living in service of other people. And then I think I would imagine as I get older, it'll be more around, I want to leave a legacy. I want to do these things. And I think like at one point, maybe later on, I'm hoping I'll get a little bit selfish where I'll just be like, I actually just want to stop thinking about all of this and just, relax and walk on the beach with, my wife and the kids when they visit and stuff. So I say that I hate the beach. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe maybe later, maybe the sand of my feet will change. Okay. But so I've always had systems. I've always believed, so, people always look at our business, say you're very creative. And we see ourselves as a strategy firm. We're not a creative agency in any way. We compare ourselves more to McKinsey than to Hunt Lascaris. But we don't think, first of all, that ad agencies, have a sole mandate on enjoying how you work. But I always believe that systems are not the enemy of creativity. I think creativity requires freedom in a framework, and it allows us to behave in a certain way. So everything has always been very, very systemized. Our business is like, we look like we're mavericks and crazy, but that's only because we have the safety net of so many different systems and rules and things that we can always land on.
Absolutely. I loved what you said about craft hour, creating, spending the time to invest in yourself within your industry and reading your, your oppositions books and stuff, people, movers and shakers that are doing something different in the pod around which you are flowing, because that must just shake things up all the time. We don't do that. We're not geared to thinking that way. It's like, forget about the opposition, just, support them from the side and focus on something else. We're not really that inclined to think that way. Is that something that you've always done? Craft hour?
No. That's relatively new, the craft hour itself. So I've always been learning, but only so I fell out of love with my craft for a while. I didn't want to, again, because of these 30s, I didn't want to be the presentation guy. Like, that was unsexy. I wanted to be bigger than that. And it was only later when we started our public speaking program, Story to Stage, and I started trying to teach other speakers and people on a daily basis. And I realized, I just love this. It's just such a beautiful craft. And I realized that arrogantly, because I've run this business for 25 years. I started when I was 22. I'm 48 now. I've been a professional speaker for 20 years. I've spoken in like 42 countries on 6 continents. And you start believing your own bullshit. Like, oh, I don't have anything else to learn. Do you know, barring one, when I read my craft hour books, there has been one and I think by design, I don't think it's terrible. I think it's just is what it is. Barring one, there's not been a single book where I haven't sat there and thought, well, shit, that's amazing. Wow. I haven't thought about that before. And some books, I pick them up and I think, because the importance of craft hour is reading books about your field, but on the fringe of your field. So the book that I'm doing at the moment is called Mastering Stand-Up. So I think it's such a fringe thing to professional speaking and presenting, but they're so good at it. And you realize they've broken down the mechanisms of how phrases and sentences work. And so I try to learn about that and, different things. So I think that everybody should be doing that. You will learn so much about your business. We've stopped learning. It's crazy. Crazy. If I went to you and I said to you in your 20s, you're 20 years old, and I said to you, here's a credit card. You can take it and you can buy as much clothes as you like for the next 4 years. You buy anything and they'll all go in this credit card and you never have to pay me back. Sounds amazing. But if I then said to you, but there's one little caveat, and the caveat is at the end of 4 years, the credit card disappears. You keep all the clothes you bought, but you're never allowed to buy clothes again. Is it still a good deal? And everyone says no. I said, well, why not? And they say, well, because things change, fashions change. And I said, cool. So why do you think differently about education? Why do you think because you went and you got your degree for 4 years, you don't have to learn? And so it blows my mind. We need to be lifelong learners.
Absolutely. That I love that analogy of the way that you put it together in a, here's a credit card, buy all the clothes that you want. Rich, just rounding up, I want to ask you about, like, if you had a bumper sticker for your career, what it would be. And I also want to ask you about how we can support you. And then I'm going to ask you about your revolutionary tips. So bumper sticker, you've dropped a few right now in this conversation, and your frameworks are pretty hot, and the way that you structure your day. And craft hour, I'm taking it on. I'm going to tell you what happens as I take it on. I'm going to teach it to my clients and get them to take it on too, because I think it's absolutely genius to carve out a time to spend time looking at what's happening on the fringe of your industry. I mean, if every CEO did that, if every leader of business, if every entrepreneur did that, I think we would have a very different type of looking world from a business perspective, because we wouldn't fear the competition. We would embrace it and would make us better. A little bit like Chat GPT. It's not, there's nothing, we can't replace us, but it can only make us better if we understand how to figure it out and use it. I don't know. Those two seem to be somehow interlinked, but
100%. Okay, so there's a few things. The very, very last little thing I want to say on this before we get into our final thing. Yes. Craft hour will only work if you put it in your diary. So one of the biggest systems I have, and I mentioned to you earlier that I've given up my life to my calendar. I don't have a to-do list. To-do lists are ridiculous. They're like middlemen, right? A to-do list is a bank account for time that you have not yet spent, right? So if you make a list of everything you have to do, what are you going to do with it? So everything that has to be done just goes into my diary. I think, how much time do I need for it? I need this much time. And anything that I need to do, like craft hour, exists in my diary from 9 to 10 every single day. So that's just that last little thought. A lot of people say to me, oh, I really like this. I say, well, cool, add it to your calendar. If you don't add it to your calendar, and if you're not militant about it at the beginning, you're never going to do it. So that's that little thing. Bumper sticker for my life. I'm very... career advice is a tricky one for me on careers. I have a one standing line that I say to almost everybody who asks me, and I believe that it's mostly true, but of course, there's always exceptions. And it is this: yesterday would have been easier, tomorrow will be harder. For almost everything you want to do, yesterday it would have been easier to start yesterday, and it will be harder to start tomorrow. If you're wanting to start a business, but you're waiting till your kids are a bit older, it's a flaw. Nothing gets easier, ever. There's university and responsibility, and then there's your lack of, you have more energy when you're younger. Start shit then, right? So that's crucial, and never put it off. So that would be my bumper sticker. Yesterday would be easier. Tomorrow will be harder.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Brilliant. So, I mean, everyone, we're going to drop the links to your LinkedIn profile. That's where I have been following you for many, many, many years. What's coming up next? Where else can we support, engage, connect? You and I are going to share those links in the comments as well, and people can find us there. But give us a bit of insight. What's to come?
There's a lot of exciting things on the cards for us that I'm really, really looking forward to. There's a new book coming out I'm busy with now, and I'm very, very excited about, called Streak. But for me right now, the number one project is, I mentioned the term stage marketing earlier. And the thing that we're really trying to grow is the YouTube channel. Although I post to YouTube and LinkedIn, we do want to get the YouTube channel up there. So that's getrich.af/YouTube. And I really love you to come in. If everybody wanted to do one small favor for me, it would just pick one video and comment on it. Trying to get that engagement is a real challenge for me. If I'm trying to figure this stuff out. I don't know. I pull my hair out. And so that would be amazing if you would love to come and just drop a comment and engage in chat. And this year, that is our biggest focus. Yeah, getrich.af.
.af.
So it's easy to remember. That'll take you to my website, but getrich.af/YouTube will take you straight to YouTube/books. We'll take you straight to my books and things. So you can play around there. But that's the biggest, number one biggest focus, is to take the quality of the content that we're putting out there and ramp it up. And you can hold me to it. If you make a note in your calendar to look at my videos a year from now, if they don't look significantly better than they do now, it's not about subscriber count. It's about making work worthy of the views that we want to get. That's my victory condition. The views we want to get must be an after effect.
Cool. That sounds phenomenal. I am going to hold you accountable to that. And I'm going to keep coming back to you on a couple of things that you said that you've shared and taught me. So thank you for your time. Thank you for telling us about some of your passion projects and your story. And yeah, it's been really interesting hearing how structured and the frameworks that you have. I mean, you put atomic habits into a similar category there, or if not, even better, you're living them. So I really appreciate that sharing, Rich. And I think that everybody that's listening is going to get so much value from that. So super thank you. Thanks for being here. And we'll see you at that YouTube channel, getrich.af, for sure.
Thank you, Licia.
Thanks.